Tonight on Ukraine Today, the Kremlin's still recovering after Ukraine's web strike and the damage to the Kerch Bridge, but are they already planning revenge? Exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and videos of the SSU's Operation Web straight from Ukraine intelligence sources. Russia's propaganda playbook just got an update. Let's see how state media is trying to convince people their bomb-out planes still fly. And is there any progress in bringing home the Ukrainian children Russia stole? All that and more right now on Ukraine Today. Hi there, we are from Ukraine, my name is Viktor Kalatai. Like, subscribe and let's get into it. While the Kremlin is still recovering from the sting of Operation Web and trying to figure out how to replace one of the Kerch Bridge's support pillars, Russian forces are creeping closer to the city of Sumy. In fact, they are now just 23 kilometers away and are shelling the city itself.
Man, guys, it's coming towards us.
Guy, where you? Ah, there it is, flying.
Man, yeah, look at that bastard. Where is it going to cross? What the hell are they shooting at?
Guy, it's flying pretty low.
Man, get down. Take cover.
Guy, shit.
Man, get the hell out. Get the hell out.
Guy, get the hell out. Get the hell out, guys. Get the hell out.
Man, get the hell out.
Guy, Japanese god. Damn, we really, need to go home right now.
It's not going down, damn it. Just keep going.
But here's the kicker. Yesterday alone, Russia lost 1,020 soldiers, 3 tanks, 7 armored vehicles and 88 artillery systems. Let's just say revenge isn't coming cheap.
Crimea was shaken by a series of explosions. The security service of Ukraine struck the Crimean bridge for the 3rd time. This time, intelligence agents planted explosives on the bridge supports. The special operation was carried out underwater. As a result, the occupiers restricted traffic for several hours. The Ministry of Defense reported that 8 drones were destroyed overnight over Russian regions and temporarily annexed Crimea. Is Operation Web 2 really brewing in Crimea? At the very least, preparations for it are underway there. After the explosions at Russian airfields, planes and helicopters were massively scrambled from military airfields in Crimea. According to Ukrainian intelligence, the carriers of tactical nuclear weapons in Crimea could include Russian planes, helicopters, as well as submarines, ships and boats based there.
At present, there has been no recorded deployment of the occupier country's nuclear weapons on the territory of occupied Crimea. However, it should be noted that even without nuclear capability, the territory of Crimea is essentially considered a continuous military base for the occupier's army. Therefore, there are enough legitimate military targets to carry out operations of this nature.
Let us recall that on June 1st, the Security Service of Ukraine conducted a historic special operation in Russia. Simultaneously, 4 military airfields in the rear of the aggressor's side were struck and dozens of aircraft worth $7 billion were lost. Well, Russia published the so-called peace memorandum, which it handed over to Ukraine during negotiations in Istanbul. It includes 3 sections with 2 options for ceasefire conditions and 31 points. The first option for a ceasefire is the complete withdrawal of the Ukrainian army from Russian territory, as well as from the entire territory of the Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions.
This refers to territorial concessions by Ukraine. Moreover, the Russian Federation is claiming even those areas of the Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions that are under the control of the Ukrainian defense forces and which the Russian army is unable to control, that is, to break through the defenses of the Ukrainian defense forces. The Russian political leadership is well aware that from a military standpoint, it is impossible to achieve the objectives of occupying the territory of the Donetsk region.
The second option includes provisions on prohibiting the redeployment of troops, halting mobilization and the supply of foreign military aid to Kyiv, as well as initiating demobilization.
Halting mobilization activities would in fact disrupt both the rotation of personnel and the replenishment of operational reserves of the Ukrainian defense forces. A similar situation applies to the cessation of military support, military technical support from our strategic partners. That is, the Russian Federation fully understands that the possibility of resuming the logistical component of military technical support, if it is halted, could seriously affect the current situation directly on the line of contact.
In addition, the document stipulates Ukraine's neutrality, its refusal to join NATO, the holding of elections, international recognition of the Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions, as well as Crimea as Russian and other such nonsense.
The remaining points of the so-called memorandum from the Russian delegation on the demilitarization of Ukraine indicate that the proposals from the Ukrainian side are essentially being nullified. Let me remind you, the Ukrainian memorandum, specifically the issues of demilitarization or reducing the size of the armed forces of Ukraine, have been taken out of the negotiation process. A similar situation applies accordingly to the so-called neutral status of Ukraine in this context.
Meanwhile, the situation in the north of the Sumy region continues to deteriorate. The analytical project Deep State has reported that Russian occupation forces have captured Konstantinivka. Several other settlements are also under threat.
At the moment, the main threat of further advancement by Russian troops in the Sumy region is their potential to establish direct control over the settlement of Yenokiivka. This settlement is the largest logistics hub for the armed forces of Ukraine. The Sumy-Yenoki-Ivka-Suji highway, which is used for personnel rotation, delivery of ammunition, and evacuation of the wounded, including by units of the Ukrainian Defense Forces concentrated in the Kursk and Belgorod regions, remains critical.
Meanwhile, official Washington is warning that after Operation Web, Russia may launch new strikes against Ukraine's energy system.
Thanks to sources inside the security service of Ukraine, we've got rare footages showing preparation for the strike on Russia's strategic bombers. One clip shows a truck loaded with the modular homes heading over to its, let's call it, classified destination. And check out these images from Russia's Olenia air base. You can clearly see the burnt-out remains of Tu-95 and AN-12 bombers. That's not a camouflage, that's a carbon. I stand fully behind what President Zelensky said.
And it's always a pleasure to give special thanks to the security service of Ukraine. Well done. Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes. Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling you the truth about this war. Click the link in the description and become our sponsor. Together to victory. Also, hit the like button if you haven't already. It really helps the channel grow. So, how did the Kremlin respond to these bold SSU moves? With rage. Putin's favorite TV mouthpiece Vladimir Solovyov said the soldier who filmed the bomb-out aircraft should be executed. Yep, in Russia the motto is still "shoot your own, so the enemy is scared." We've pulled together all the wildest propaganda reactions for your entertainment, but be warned, exposure to Russian state TV may result in brain damage. 140 million already affected.
In Russia, a new day means a new normal. Some propose executions by decree, others call the people drones. And housing for so-called heroes consists of flooded rooms without doors. All this isn't a dystopian film adaptation, but the chronicles of the past week. The head of the State Duma Defense Committee, Andrei Peacemaker Kartapolov, has made yet another prediction. According to him, if Ukraine suddenly refuses a peaceful settlement, in other words, capitulation, then it faces the disappearance of cities like Sumy, Kharkiv, Odessa, and so on down the list, until Ukraine vanishes completely from the map.
Well, as we've said from the very beginning, it's clear that every single day without a diplomatic resolution to this ongoing conflict only continues to worsen the conditions for Ukraine. And this will continue as long as Zelensky's hysterical regime keeps behaving like a delicate young lady. So, they don't want to? Fine. They'll get everything that's coming to them. They'll lose Zaporizhzhia, Dnipropetrovsk, Sumy, Kharkiv, and Odessa, along with Mykolaiv.
Overall, according to experts, diplomacy is when you say, let's come to a peaceful agreement or else we'll take everything from you. And if that doesn't work, well, then you just have to try again. Meanwhile, the so-called philosopher Dugin, who is often referred to as the ideologue of the Russian world, clearly articulated what had previously only been hinted at between the lines of official rhetoric.
We need all of Ukraine. We call it different things. We call it denazification. Try achieving denazification if we don't have political control over that territory. We need demilitarization. Try ensuring demilitarization, that is, the absence of military power in a country that is independent, sovereign, and supported by NATO. That is impossible without establishing control over the entirety of that territory.
However, according to him, peace is only possible after the complete absorption of the country. Meanwhile, in the Amur region, the wife of a participant in the special military operation was placed in a flooded room without a door. The woman said that her husband was a hero who died in the war, but instead of support, the state provided her with housing where there is water on the floor and drafts blowing through the doorways. And in response, there is only silence. This is roughly the kind of Russian world they bring and impose on Ukraine. Only here, it's for their own people.
No pumping has been done. Pumping is not being carried out. I immediately fall asleep from the screenings. Pumping, the floor is full of water.
Meanwhile, Solovyov reported that Vladimir Medinsky and his children have started receiving threats involving scooters. On the same day, Medinsky was added to the Mirotvorets website database.
Over the past few days, Vladimir Rostislavovich's family, both his closest immediate family members and members of his household, his relatives, including both adult family members and children, have been receiving very specific and targeted threats, explicitly stating that we know exactly where your children are located and we have plenty of rigged scooters prepared.
During one of the recent meetings, according to Solovyov, Medinsky allegedly asked the Ukrainian Defense Minister Umerov a question about the terrorist attacks. The response was as follows.
The Ukrainian Nazis have taken the next step. They have gone so far as to threaten family members. And when Vladimir Rostislavovich directly asked Umerov about his attitude toward this, he paused and said, "I found out it's definitely not us. It's most likely our Nazis. We don't control them."
Tkachev stated in a message that Russians who do not go to the so-called special military operation are drones and debtors. According to him, the country relies on Putin and the soldiers, while the rest of the people just eat, party, and have fun.
And we are drones. We eat, drink, dress up, go out, and enjoy ourselves. And meanwhile, someone else is fighting for us, building, crying, praying, dying, enduring pain, and so on and so forth. Christians should understand that we are all debtors, we live on borrowed time.
According to Tkachev, of course, the greatest burden is borne by Vladimir Vladimirovich himself.
Today's VV, Commander-in-Chief Vladimir Vladimirovich, is a single person who carries almost the entire weight of our history. If it weren't for him, we would have plenty of traitors, plenty of people eager to surrender to the West. Today, he bears a great burden of responsibility for the existence of Russian civilization.
Meanwhile, Turkey says peace talks between Ukraine and Russia will continue. Apparently, both sides see some values. Well, unless by value Russia means time to stall, delay aid to Ukraine and try to talk sanctions away. Ukraine, on the other hand, is pushing to get back not just its POWs, but also the thousands of abducted children taken by Russia. The Kremlin's answer so far cold, cynical, disgusting. But could there still be a breakthrough? Let's take a closer look.
The second meeting between the Ukrainian and Russian delegations took place in Istanbul.
Not a single innocent abducted child.
One of the main topics was the return of children stolen by the Russian occupiers. The Ukrainian side officially handed over a list to the Russian delegation.
We gave the other side a list of several hundred Ukrainian children who were deported to Russia. This issue is a fundamental priority for us. If Russia is truly committed to the peace process, returning at least half of the children from this list would be a positive signal.
The Kremlin, however, presented the story as follows. In the Russian Federation, they tried to document who exactly these children allegedly stolen by the Russian Federation were. Supposedly, they didn't have any lists. Even though Ukraine has been talking about these children for 4 years now.
Recently, we have been reviewing all such requests without exception. Our office, the Commissioner for Children's Rights, has returned 101 children. 101. And from the Ukrainian side, 22 children have been returned, because the same thing happens there. Our children can end up in conflict zones and lose contact with their parents.
Medinsky called the abduction of children a show aimed at soft-hearted Europeans.
Here is this list, 339 names. This once again shows that, unfortunately, the Ukrainian authorities have turned the issue of child abduction into a show aimed at soft-hearted Europeans. You know, apparently they watched the film Wag the Dog. Remember Wag the Dog? You want to make someone cry, then show an abandoned child, or even better, a child with a cat. And that's exactly what they're showing, in fact.
He says the children weren't abducted but rescued. This all sounds like the story of how Russia was saving Donbas. In the end, all that was left of it were ruins.
These are actually children who are not abducted by anyone. There isn't a single abducted child. There are children who are rescued by our soldiers.
Putin's aide calls the abductions a shameful PR campaign, praising Russian soldiers.
Our soldiers often conduct themselves in many situations the way Soviet soldiers did.
And while Kremlin lackeys hand out comments to Russian media, going on and emphasizing that the number of children is not in the thousands but in the hundreds, the president of Ukraine stated that the issue is not about the number but the very fact of abduction.
He told us that we should.
They said that we shouldn't put on a show for childless European grandmothers.
European grandmothers.
I think it's important to note not the number but the very fact that the Russians have admitted to abducting children.
In March 2023, the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Putin and Lvova Belova on suspicion of the illegal deportation of Ukrainian children. Ukraine has confirmed more than one instance of the illegal removal of Ukrainian children to Russia by the occupiers.
They brought up 5 buses, loaded them onto the buses, and 5 more staff members went with them. The rest refused, and they took them over there to the other side.
One such story happened during the retreat of Russian troops from Kherson in November 2022. At that time, the occupiers abducted 48 children from the local orphanage.
Everything is still in Ukrainian, but the flag is already ours, Russian. It will always be this way.
Oh, good afternoon.
The majority of people, along with their homes, belongings and other personal properties, were forcibly relocated by the occupying forces. Most of them were moved deeper into the occupied territory, specifically to Crimea, while the remaining individuals were deported further away across the border to various regions within Russia.
We are taking these children to normal, safe conditions, and I want to express my gratitude. Anna Kuznetsova, Andrei Turchak, the politician, for the full assistance and support provided, of course, Sergei Pavlovich Akshanov as well.
He named those who assisted in the deportation of Ukrainian children. Lvova Belova, the Russian Commissioner for Children's Rights, heads this list. Simferopol. Here, Ukrainian children were distributed between 2 institutions. One of them is Yolochka. It gained a grim reputation as a children's concentration camp, where children were turned into physical and psychological invalids. After some time, it was possible to return some of the children to Ukraine to their families. All of this happened with the mediation of Qatar and Qatari diplomats.
Today, we have the largest group with us. 11 children are here. Due to the loss of their parents to relatives in Ukraine, but how exactly? We are returning all of them from the orphanage.
All these children were at risk of losing not only their home, but also their future.
An explanation letter addressed to the camp director, like, why did you stand up for the Russian anthem? Like, why did you sing it and all that? Well, I wrote that I just don't want to stand up for that anthem. I don't want to sing it.
About 6,000 children from Ukraine, ranging in age from 4 months to 17 years, have passed through Russian camps, where they were subjected to ideological indoctrination and reorientation towards Russia.
Teachers from schools in Yevpatoria used to come to us. In the camp, we were taught standard subjects, but only in Russian and with Russian history. There it was written completely differently. That is, it said that Ukraine is so bad that they once illegally conquered some cities. Every morning at 8 o'clock you stand and listen to the Russian national anthem, or they could lock you up in isolation. They forced the girls to braid their hair into 2 braids and weave in ribbons with the colors of the Russian flag.
Finally, in 2024, Ukraine was able to bring back 1,002 children from Russia and the temporarily occupied territories. Although in June 2025, Medinsky reduced that number by 10 times.
Our office, the Commissioner for Children's Rights, has returned 101 children. 101!
This once again proves that the illegal deportation of Ukrainian children means nothing to the Russian side. A lawyer says that the number of children we need to fight for is enormous, and it is absolutely necessary to ensure their return home to Ukraine.
That is about 1,600,000 Ukrainian children who are currently under the control of the Russian Federation. We are talking about those children who were, for example, forcibly relocated within the occupied territories, but also about those children who were not moved anywhere, who were not taken away, but they remain under occupation. Among these 1,600,000, more than 600,000 are school-age children who are currently in the Russian formal education system, where they are being raised to become patriots of the Russian Federation. The fact that they were not deported or forcibly relocated in no way negates the fact that these children's rights are being violated every day.
One thing we all need to understand: Russia doesn't stop at borders. It doesn't respect laws, human rights or treaties. It lies, it invades, and it doesn't back down. As US Senator Lindsey Graham put it recently in an interview with the French TV.
Regarding Ukraine and Russia, if this war ends in a way that makes it seem like Russia has won, it will set the world on fire. The United States' withdrawal from Afghanistan was a terrible decision. That triggered Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That made America look weak. I told President Trump privately and now publicly that if this war ends in such a way that we abandon Ukraine, it would be worse than Afghanistan for the stability of the world. And you don't want to take credit for that. And you don't want to get it.
That's all for today. Thank you for being with us. We read your comments and feel your support. Stay strong and stay smart. Glory to Ukraine. See you next time on Ukraine Today.